Hello, I'm Jishan Krabanda.
And I'm Rambatu, and welcome to the 13th episode of Weekly Dose of High School, where we'll be guiding you through the life of a high school student while speaking to knowledgeable people in the industry.
Today we are here again with Preet and Aryan, who run a nonprofit student-led organization that strives to educate the community about the college admission process by providing live interactive sessions and a collaborative group chat to give tips for creating solid college applications. In the previous episode, we heard Preet and Aryan talk about their extracurriculars and how they related to their major. So if you haven't checked out that one, I highly recommend you check out that one first. But in today's episode, we're going to be hearing Preet and Aryan speak about more about the nitty-gritty parts of the college admission process, specifically like the essays, the activities, and honors section, and all that good stuff.
Well, without further ado, let's get into today's episode. So do you think it's necessary to take outside college counseling when schools are already providing one?
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was saying, right?
Yeah.
When there's one school counselor and there are like 300 to 500 students, and everyone's asking for help and questions, it's very unlikely that they'd be able to give you the right advice at the right time, especially with so many students that are on their mind and like just having so many different questions asked to them. That's why I personally think having a private college consulting person that helps you get the right idea, get the right essays is much better because when you have a more, I'd say, private conversation, they know more about you and they can give you more ideas about what to write about rather than a college, like a student school counselor, because they don't know you as much as a private counselor would, and nor would they be able to give you as many tips as a private counselor would. Of course, these school counselors have a lot of experience in writing maybe essays or recommendation letters, but that private counselor has a lot of experience in getting or in writing these students' essays and helping them get into colleges. And I would say certain consulting companies have a lot of, you know how they always brag about, oh, my student got this student got a
Right.
Stanford,
Yeah.
Harvard, Princeton, all that stuff.
Yeah.
They have like that experience, and they're getting the results. I wouldn't see why not, right? Of course, it costs a lot of money. It basically won't empty out your bank account, but you have to like, find that balance. So it's really up to you, but how well you are at writing essays honestly depends on you, right? I wouldn't want a college counsel or a college consulting person to basically alter my entire essay, because I want my feelings, my personality to show in that essay. When these admission officers, when they read your essays, they're trying to find out what type of person you really are. And if these college counselors basically, when they rewrite your whole essay, they're redirecting your entire personality, and you can't show out as a person that you really are.
Mhm.
Right. And so I think it's very important to get that right balance in the amount of like sessions you do with these people, whether it be the college counselor or your school counselor. But also make sure to like have your personality in your essays.
Mhm. So I know you just mentioned, like look for the counselors who say, "Hey, my client's got into XYZ school." So I know you've made in your nonprofit like a resource document where you guys list the best college counselors. A lot of these college consulting companies, right? What they do, like if someone like a student from their company gets into Stanford, obviously the company is gonna like say our clients got into Stanford. But like what if the student didn't even rely that much on the consulting company and they still got into Stanford regardless of whether or not they were attended or used that college consulting company. So do you think these sort of scenarios give a false impression to future clients?
Definitely agree with that. I think what happens is that you can at times offer or like ask for a trial session with them. Basically, what they would do in that session is just sit down with you, learn a bit more about you, and then give you like a few quick tips. And from that session, you can basically judge the person and how much they're willing to help you and how much they can help you. And I think that's a good way of identifying which college counselor is good for you, in terms of writing the essays or helping you get the ideas out there. But also that way you can determine, is it really like the bang for the buck, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Got it.
also to add on to that, generally in these trial sessions, they don't engage too much with you.
Right, yeah, obviously.
Yeah. So you might want to you might want to also ask people who are already in that, like call them and then just ask them like very detailed questions about how the college counseling company really helped them or not, because you might not get a proper impression in those trial things.
Yeah, and that's what dreaming is all about, right? Basically, we have a lot of participants that pitch in their ideas, their personal opinions about companies that they've tried, and there's a few people that have already been part of these companies, and they may not like the experience. So our goal is to ask them why they didn't like what they didn't like about it. And on that note, we also bring different college companies to explain what they can offer. And that's like the very like key thing about Dream Big, is that not only do we have, or are we connecting the companies to the clients, but also we're giving the clients like the right options, like multiple different options with different opinions. And so, like Aryan mentioned, it's it's a key factor in like identifying the perfect college company for you if you have a lot of different opinions on it, and you can talk to the people that have like firsthand experienced it.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, so like we touched about this a little while back. How prepared do you think you are like coming into this college admission cycle, Aryan? You said you're refining your personal statement, but like in terms of supplementals and PAQs, how far have you progressed?
Well, I hate to say this, but I don't think I've progressed very much, because over the summer, yes, I did do some essays. I did write them. I did rewrite them, but then they just, I guess they weren't like my final draft. Like as I wrote each one, I kept on like rediscovering new things about myself, what I could actually write and stuff. So now over that trial period of writing in Scratch and writing drafts and stuff, I finally started to like get an idea of what to actually write in my personal statement. So yes, I am getting somewhere, but yeah, I don't think I'm really ready as of now. I may have to step it up a bit in the upcoming months.
And so, like comes to supplemental essays, this applies to both of you. How do you think an applicant can nail those supplementals, especially the why us essay, like why our college, why this major, and also the other one that I believe is popular, why this major at our college specifically. So like, how do you nail these types of supplementals?
Well, generally, as I said before, you want to stand out in your essay. So if you write about something that other people don't really write about, then you stand out from the other applicants and you have a better chance of getting in. You should also get very nitty-gritty and specific with, I guess, why you want to go to the particular college. Say you like the field, you like like they say, you like the vibe, you like stuff like that. You also might want to mention specific professors or very, very, very specific classes that you always wanted to attend and stuff like that. Yeah, so by getting very specific and not being very cliche will help you in those essays.
And do you have to know these professors prior to like mention them in your supplemental, or can you just list them if you're just passionate to work with them later on?
I mean, if you know them, that's a plus. I don't know if you can get a recommendation letter from them or not, but if you know them, yeah, that's definitely a plus. If you don't know them, I guess you can still list them. Like, yeah, it won't hurt you if you list them. If you do your research on them and then you figure out why you want to learn under them and then you list them, that's not gonna harm you.
Wait, so I'm not sure about this, but are there like specific supplement questions that ask you which professor you would like to work with in the future?
I mean,
Well, what I was trying to ask was, one example that came to mind was Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech asks, why do you want to pursue this major specifically at Georgia Tech? So I think Aryan was trying to say, like, hey, you can mention like a professor or
Okay, I
like
see.
a niche field work that does research at Georgia Tech. Correct me if I'm wrong, Aryan.
yeah, I don't think there are any specific why do you want to study under this professor questions.
Yeah, okay. I was just making sure. Okay, thank you. So Okay, so are you gonna apply your SAT score to all the colleges you'll be applying to? Because sometimes it could be a disadvantage. Like I know two people who are applying to the school and have done like similar extracurriculars, and they had the same GPAs throughout high school. But one applied their SAT score to their high school, and one didn't. And the person who didn't apply the SAT score got into the college, while the other person who did apply did not. So, why do you think colleges do that sometimes?
Well, I think what you should do is you should consider applying your SAT score if you're like, I guess if your SAT score is in like the average, I guess 50% to 75% or even 75 percentile to the top 100 percentile SAT scores. Like you can usually Google a college's SAT scores online. So if your SAT scores are pretty good, they're in the upper 50th percentile or upper 75th percentile or something, then you might want to consider applying those. Yeah, SAT scores aren't really the sole admissions criteria. You could have a good SAT score, but then bad GPA and all that, and you could still be denied admission. So SAT scores aren't really much on their own, but if they're strong SAT scores and your extracurriculars are strong and your other academics are also strong, then they can only help your application.
So I know some Ivy Leagues who are looking for like 1550 plus SATs. So if I apply like a 1540 or let's say a 1530, would I still be rejected?
Well, that kind of depends, I guess. I mean, if you have a solid GPA, then I guess they won't just outright discard you from being considered. So they might still consider you, and then if you have solid extracurriculars and the rest of your academics are also fine, I guess they might be willing to overlook that. But generally, if your SAT score is like a 1540 and they're looking for 1550 pluses, or no, if your score is like 1520 or 1510, that you might not want to consider applying that. But if it's like, I guess, a 1540, then that you enter this gray zone where I guess you have to decide for yourself.
Okay, thank you.
So like what I've heard previously, like people are like above 1500, like that's like the line where they're gonna start considering your application if you send in the SAT score. So obviously that's not gonna like even get you in, like even if you get a 1600, you're not gonna get in because how competitive it is. But I heard like if you're like 1500 plus, regardless of the school, your application will still be considered provided all your other stuff is on par with that college.
I mean, yeah, 1500 plus, I guess, is considered a good score because a lot of colleges just think that there's usually an error margin of about 50 points or so on the SAT. Like if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah, I know.
If you score like a 1550, that translates to you could have your skill range is anywhere from 1500 to 1600. So yeah, if you score a 1500, then that can also be translated to your scores anywhere between a 1450 and a 1550. But of course, a 1550 is going to be better than a 1500.
Right. Okay, so moving away from the SAT and testing everything, so like how do you think your nonprofit organization Dream Big has like changed the way you go about like your entire high school life and maybe even your personal life?
Well, it has definitely improved my connection to my community for one. I was new to America in 9th grade. I came from India, so Dream Big really helped me connect to my local community because I didn't really know anyone at that point. But then over the years, as I started volunteering Dream Big, I started to feel a greater connection to my community. And now I start considering my community in, I guess, a lot of my daily decisions where previously I did not used to do that. So it's definitely, I guess, improved my sense of belonging and community for one.
Yeah, definitely. I think I was there since the very beginning when we started Dream Big. So since then, I've learned so much more about the admissions process. And before, I had honestly no clue what the process was, how it worked, how to apply. But now, after being part of Dream Big for so long and understanding and meeting so many new people, including admission officers, college consulting people, it's completely changed the way I look at the admissions process. I like gained so much knowledge from the just the entire process of just connecting with others. And like Arun mentioned, at first I honestly didn't know much on how I could volunteer and just help out. But when we started Dream Big, it basically changed the way I look at things now. Every time I'm like helping something out or like helping someone out, I get so many messages from parents in a different group chats. They're always saying me, thank you for like starting Dream Big because it's really helped them. And that just feels very warming to me,
Right.
and to all the other volunteers, hopefully. Like it's really helping out. So
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, you guys have like an audience of like 1,000+ members, so pretty impressive what you guys are doing. So like as a follow-up to that, Aryan, I believe you mentioned that you came to the US since 9th grade. So have you and Preet been doing Dream Big ever since 9th grade, or has it been like later on?
so basically I started Dream Big well before. I think it was in 2018, 2019 when we started off.
Mhm.
But we got more involved. Me and Aryan got more involved at the same time when he was a sophomore and I was a freshman in high school. Um, because that's when we started actually recruiting for people, and then that's when we actually got very like more in depth with it. So we're just going
Yeah,
from like 100 members to like 300, 400. So we actually needed more members, and we need to start recruiting more people to like put in the amount of work that we have been doing.
Mhm. Got
yeah,
it.
we actually joined the volunteer team in, I think it was the end of 2020, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
we officially joined the volunteer team, and we've been on it since then.
So,
Mhm.
so Preet and Aryan, do you plan on contacting professors or asking your friends to read your personal statement, supplement questions, and PIQs?
Yeah, I mean, why not? That
Yeah.
advice can only help you. So why wouldn't you do that, really?
All
I
right.
plan on doing
So,
it.
do you have like connections to professors from like various or like top 20 colleges?
Uh no, I don't. But I mean, is a professor really gonna take time out of his or her very busy schedule, since they're in a top 20 school, to read someone's application essays?
Right.
I don't think they would really entertain that, even
I
if
mean,
you
I know a friend who has like connections from like I think Columbia or Chicago University, and the professor from there read their essay and helped them get into that university. So
Yeah, I think it's very good, especially for like someone like me and Arjun, since we've been contacting admission officers and all that.
yeah,
I actually have a few connections in professors or even admission officers. And when I do start my supplementals and my essays, I do plan on like reaching out to some of them. But honestly, I think at first I'd start off with like professors at like a community college and
Mhm.
then move my way up. It might just be like better that way because I think they'd be more free and more like willing to help you out in writing a better application or better essay.
Mhm.
So that's the way I think I will go. Definitely I'll have friends look at my essays, parents, maybe a few college counselors that I might have. So yeah.
don't you think it would be hard to implement all the advice from like many people into like your essays?
Yeah, but I think there are always people like everyone's perspective is completely different, right?
Right.
So there's some things that I would probably be very like strong about not like putting into my application, or some things I'd be like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. So I'll add it onto my application.
Right.
So getting all the feedback would be welcome for me, personally, because I think having these feedback, because they've been through the process already, they know exactly what to expect. So getting feedback from professors or college consulting people is more than helpful for me. Parents, maybe, because my brother just graduated, and
Yeah.
so they sort of like know what's going on with the application process and what went wrong with my brother and what went right. So they probably might like consider helping me out in that aspect.
Yep. That sounds really good.
Okay. Now, so I'm gonna like ask a question about like the EDs. A lot of students think about like if I ED to school, I automatically bump up my chances while that may be true, like I think ED has a higher acceptance rate, but it also has more a competitive pool. And also, not to mention, there's legacies and recruited athletes. So, what do you think, or which school do you think gives the most ED boost, quote unquote, like for a well-qualified applicant?
Well, something I like to add is that Stanford has restrictive early action, which is technically like ED.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that I've heard that actually you have a lower chance of getting accepted in REA, restrictive early action, than you do have a chance of getting accepted in regular decisions. So yeah, in very, very competitive schools like Stanford, it could be a disadvantage, but I guess you never really know. Generally, it's an advantage. It gives you a boost.
Yeah.
So also, like, while we're on the topic of competitive schools, many of these schools, the competitive ones, offer like an art supplement or art portfolio. So while many might consider sending in one, I like read an article a month or two back that if you send an average art supplement, it can actually detriment your application.
I think so. Um, I'd say you want to keep your application very heavy, but also very simple at the same time. You don't want to, like, a lot of students, what they do is like they sort of don't understand when to like stop and just like not do anything afterwards. There's students that when they're writing the essays, they continue adding like, what can I edit? What can I edit? And then when they make those final edits before they submit, it just messes things up. Same thing for like the art supplement. You might want to know when to stop. Unless simply you have a very good art supplement, I don't think you should submit one thing like that. Because it might have a negative impact on your application itself.
Mhm.
Yeah, it might just confuse your admissions officer, because if you do that, you're trying to cram in everything you possibly can into your college application, and that makes things confusing, to say the least.
Exactly.
Mhm. Well, yeah, okay. So now let me ask you, like, do you like obviously we're all high schoolers here, but like, do you think this coming admission cycle is going to be more competitive than the previous one? Like last admission cycle, the 2022 admission cycle was like completely bonkers. Like so many people got rejected, like so many well-qualified applicants got rejected. So do you think this is going to be the same case or same scenario for this admission cycle? Or do you think it's going to get more eased out considering that the COVID-19 is getting better and better?
It's hard to tell. Generally, what happens is that the competitiveness increases over time, because generally there are more applicants over time. But it's kind of hard to tell for this because of the whole COVID thing. Maybe it will be easier, maybe it will be harder. I can't give a specific answer.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't think it'll get easier because if you like, I'm sure everyone already knows that UCs went test blind. Basically, that means that they're not accepting
Yeah.
any standardized testing anymore. So especially for the UCs, these last few years, or these last 2 years, I should say, the amount of applicants that have applied to these UCs have shot up significantly.
Mhm.
And since they've been going test blind, what people used to think before was that they don't have a good SAT score and ACT score, therefore they're not going to get in, so they shouldn't apply. But now that that's not even a prerequisite anymore, a lot of more students who applied, and just because they don't have their standardized testing, their GPAs, their extracurriculars, and their essays have a little bit more weight on them. And that like bumps up the competitiveness in these schools because I'm not sure if you already know, but now they're thinking of having a few less seats in these UCs. So the competitiveness will go significantly with more qualified candidates, but less spots in these UCs. So
Could
definitely.
you like elaborate more on that? Is that like a new government proposition or bill?
Oh, no. Basically what happened was that I'm sure I think you know, but Berkeley said like denied 5,000 something spots, but then government overruled that because of like dorm issues or something like that. But definitely more people are applying to it or to these UCs, but the spots have still remained the same. So the competitiveness of these particular like UCs will go up definitely because more people, but the same base is still the same.
Mhm. And like as a follow-up to that, do you think the rumors of the UCs from the past couple of years that they're accepting more out-of-state students and international students to generate more revenue than California students? Do you think this is true? And do you think this is gonna like change anytime soon, or do you think this trend of UCs accepting more out-of-state students is gonna continue on?
I think that happened like 2 years ago when, because of the pandemic, everything went online. So like um they were saying that since they're out-of-state students and they're still going online, they're just making more money off the student. And I think that was true that time, but definitely that has been like slowed down a lot more in these last 2 years.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, generally one thing to consider is that, yeah, even if there was online learning, and even if there isn't online learning, out-of-state students still generally pay more tuition. Sometimes it's double the normal tuition fees. Yes, they still have to pay more than that. So
Right.
yeah, that's where the whole problem comes from.
Yeah.
Okay, so my final question for you is, do you care whether your campus is big or small, or how often there are parties, or are you just hoping to get into a good college regardless of the campus size and the number of parties?
I'd say it's probably a mixture of both. If the college is good enough, then yeah, I would like to go to one with parties and I guess a medium college size or something. But yeah, I'm not really too sure on that.
Yeah. Like I said, I think I used to visit a lot of colleges before, and some colleges just didn't suit me. So even though
Is
if
that
I went,
because of the campus size, or
like just the feeling, the environment around it just didn't suit me. And so if I were to have a decision between two colleges, I would probably have to go visit again and see how I like the environment, and then I'd probably make a decision based on that, because I think it's very, very important for me to be comfortable in that environment, because I'm going to spend 4 or more years in that
yeah,
college. And so if I'm not able to work properly with the surroundings, I might not want to go there.
yeah, that's
It,
fair.
yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap today's episode, I have like a couple or two final quick questions for you. So first one being is like, if you like plan on mentioning some stellar extracurriculars, like, hey, I did this research paper, or hey, I won this competition, do you think it's better that you include or you have a recommendation letter from that mentor, professor, or whatever to back up the claims that you did all this?
Yeah, I think it would definitely help. I remember a friend of mine, he created, or he got his research paper published on the news, or on like a newspaper.
Mhm.
And the thing was, that paper was a very solid paper, but it wasn't published yet because they were planning on doing like some stuff with it. And so what he did was he, in fact, like got the person that was writing the newspaper itself to write a recommendation letter for him. And that boosted his like application significantly, because that particular person talked about all the benefits of having that research paper included in his newspaper, and how the student was such a qualified candidate for the college. And they talked about their personality, and that's what these like admission officers really want to hear from these recommendation letters, is that what type of person you really are in your classroom setting, and how like you would be fit for a college. Like I know that certain colleges like leaders, for example. And so
Mhm.
if your teacher were to give an incident when you were becoming a leader by like stepping up in the classroom, giving a presentation, and just leading the group or project or something like that, and making decisions with everyone else involved and all that, that shows like that the teacher knows you more, and it gets to know another side of you from like the teacher's perspective, and to see if you actually fit in the college itself.
Yeah, also to add on to that, sometimes colleges can think that your application is too good to be true. So say you have a perfect GPA 4.0, perfect SAT 1600, and you did some very, very, very like notable things,
Mhm.
then the college might think you're bluffing. So it never hurts to have recommendation letters to
Right.
actually back up that you did these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it never hurts. And sometimes the college may just like not believe you, and they may not admit you. Again, this is hypothetical, but it could happen. So it's just better to have stuff to back that up in the form of
Yeah.
recommendation letters and endorsements.
I can
Mhm.
actually give an example on that. 2 years ago, a few friends of mine, they were both like very good friends, like best friends, and they were actually on my robotics team. One was a CS major, one was a mechanical major, and the CS major was like team captain. In his year, we went to, like world championships. We got on the news. He did a NASA internship where he was he led the internship itself, and he had a solid GPA, good SAT score. But the thing is, he didn't get any of like the UCs, or he did get into some, but he didn't get into Berkeley or LA, the ones that he wanted to go into. But the
Mhm.
other friend, he wasn't as good. He really didn't have as many like the extracurriculars. He didn't have like a solid application, but he got into Berkeley.
Mhm.
So that's all because of like at times the application might just be too good. Because
Right.
he didn't have any internships. The other guy had a NASA internship where he was leading like an entire internship department. So
Mhm.
that happens at times.
And since you mentioned 2 years ago, I'm assuming Berkeley or the UCs were still accepting letter of recommendations back then, right?
Oh, no, I think this was during the pandemic year where things went like bonkers.
Oh,
Got it. Okay, and then my final question for you guys is, what have you guys been doing in the summer to relieve yourself? Like nothing like extracurricular wise or academic wise, just like deep breathe and get ready for the upcoming school year.
Mainly stuff like exercising, hanging out with friends and stuff like that. Pursuing hobbies.
Yeah, definitely. I think some of the stuff that we do, like me and my friends, like my neighbors, we just hang out a lot. And also I love to play tennis. Like I want to pursue tennis in the future as well. And so that's what I've been doing throughout the summer, just like playing tennis every day, just getting myself out of my home, exercising, breathing the fresh air and just like
yeah,
relaxing.
sounds great.
Got it. Thank you.
Well, that's it for today for episode 13 of Weekly Dose of High School. Hope you guys enjoyed listening to Preet and Aryan speak about their experience and passion for computer science and engineering and what their plans for the future are.
Also, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our podcast, whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, or YouTube. We're on all those platforms and we upload weekly episodes, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss an upload. Until then, take it easy, guys.